Hi everyone, and welcome back to the next review video for the Biology or Living Environments regions. This is Unit 2, Topic 4, Part 1, going over some human body systems. So the first human body system we're going over is the circulatory system. One of the main organs in the system is the heart, which is the large muscular organ responsible for pumping blood around the body. The second thing in the circulatory system are blood vessels, which contain veins moving blood back towards the heart. You have arteries that move blood away from the heart, and then the capillaries, which are the thin network of very, very small blood vessels that connect between arteries and veins. And then the final thing that you have is the blood, which fills all the blood vessels and contains red blood cells, white blood cells, which we'll look at later, platelets, and various other nutrients. So the main function of the circulatory system is to transport oxygen, nutrients, and waste. So oxygen and nutrients, oxygen is taken largely from the lungs and nutrients from the small intestine, which go towards the cell for cell respiration, and waste such as carbon dioxide is taken away from cells to be taken out of the body either through the lungs or through the excretory system. So we'll talk more about the circulatory system throughout this video in relation to various other body systems, but right now we'll go talk about the digestive system. So the digestive system includes the mouth, which is obviously where we take in our food. It includes the stomach, where the food passes after it goes down through our throat. And then finally, the small intestine. And within the small intestine, there are these villi and microvilli, which are these tiny little hair-like extensions with a large surface area, which we'll talk about later. So the main function of the digestive system is to break down food for absorption. So what it does is it takes the large food that we eat and breaks it down into these smaller molecules, which are then small enough to diffuse into the bloodstream to then be transported into cells. So that's the absorption, where it is absorbed out of the digestive system into the circulatory system to be moved away. So the steps of doing this are first in the mouth, where we chew food and enzymes break down starches. So this is really the first wave of digesting the food, which occurs with saliva in our mouth, which we all produce whenever we're eating food, which breaks down lots of starches into simple foods. Sugar, sorry. Then, once we've swallowed that, the second wave really occurs in the stomach. And in the stomach, enzymes and stomach acids will break down proteins, and these are broken down into amino acids. So these enzymes and stomach acids are a lot stronger than the saliva that we have in our mouth, which is why they're able to break down these proteins. And then the third step is in the small intestines, where enzymes finish breaking down all food. So anything that's left that has been broken down either by the enzymes in our mouth, our stomach, or the stomach acid is then finally broken down in the small intestine. So really just the rest is taken. So now we have our important interaction with the circulatory system. So the interaction here is that food molecules pass through the villi and are absorbed into blood. So the food that is in the small intestine goes through villi, which are those tiny little hair-like extensions I talked about before, and absorbed into blood. And this absorption occurs at the capillaries, which are the small little blood vessels in between the veins and arteries, which have slower blood flow, and it's easier for nutrients to be absorbed into. And then once it's absorbed into the blood, the circulatory system transports nutrients to the body. So these nutrients go all over. Primarily glucose is transported, and this is transported into body cells, which can then be used for cell respiration. So the circulatory system takes these nutrients that are absorbed and transports them to the rest of the body. Okay, so the next system we're going to look at is the respiratory system. And the main structure in the respiratory system are our lungs. And then within our lungs, there's an important structure we want to know, which is the alveoli. So the alveoli are these tiny little air-filled sacs that are at the end of our lungs, and that's where the air goes and where the air can then be transported into everywhere else. So the main function of the lungs is gas exchange. The respiratory system is all about taking oxygen and moving oxygen into the blood, and taking carbon dioxide from the blood and moving it out. So, in the lungs, all these alveoli, which are the tiny air sacs, are surrounded by capillaries. So this is where we see our interaction with the circulatory system. So oxygen is moved to body cells, which occurs at the alveoli. It diffuses into the blood from the alveoli or the lungs into the capillaries, and that is then moved throughout the body, and then carbon dioxide waste from cell respiration is moved to lungs. So carbon dioxide diffuses into the lungs. And diffusion occurs because there is a concentration gradient. So because there's a much higher concentration of oxygen in the alveoli than in the blood, it automatically moves. It moves into the bloodstream, whereas carbon dioxide has a higher concentration in the bloodstream, so that causes it to move into the lungs. And then once these things have moved, then they can be transported. Either carbon dioxide is taken out of the body when we exhale, or the oxygen can be pumped around the body, moving into our body cells to be used for cell respiration. Okay, so finally we have the excretory system, which is the last system we'll be talking about in this lesson, which includes multiple parts. So firstly, we have the skin, which is where actually lots of things are excreted out of our bodies. Primarily, for example, sweat. When we sweat out of our body, that's a use of the excretory system where lots of things are removed in sweat. We have the lungs, which is a part of the excretory system as it excretes carbon dioxide, as talked about before. And we have the urinary system, which includes our kidneys and our bladder, which is when we get rid of urine. So the main function of this is, as it sounds like, it's excretion, which is also the removal of waste. So we need this so that toxic waste doesn't pile up in our body and inhibit functions. And one just specific thing you should know about one specific part is that the kidneys are used for this, and in the kidneys, blood is filtered. So the kidneys filter your blood to help remove any toxins from the blood. If any toxins that aren't supposed to be there are piling up, the kidneys help to filter them out, and then the waste can be transported to be later removed from the bladder. So you just want to know that the kidneys are very important for filtering blood. And now the last thing for this video is the New York State Making Connections Lab, which is one of the 4 labs that you need to know for this. And this lab is centered around exercise. So what you want to know is that when you exercise, as you probably know from just common sense, your heart beats faster. And the reason this happens is that your blood is moving faster, which allows your body to transport nutrients like oxygen and glucose to your cells faster. So this is necessary because your body needs these nutrients for cell respiration, which makes ATP. So when you transport them faster, you can conduct more cell respiration and make more ATP. So the second thing you want to know about this lab is that during exercise, your breathing rate and depth of breathing also increase as well. So your breathing rate, which is how fast you breathe, and the depth of breathing, which is really how much oxygen you take in, increases. So more oxygen is brought into the body for cell respiration, and it also means that more carbon dioxide is removed from the body. So you not only get more oxygen for cell respiration, but then you can also more efficiently remove carbon dioxide, which is the toxic byproduct of cellular respiration, which can be damaging to the body if there's too much. So that's all we have for the lesson. So now we have some review questions. The first question is a question about the kidneys. So number 29, the kidney is an organ that collects waste and excess water from the blood and sends them to the bladder where they are stored before being removed from the body. Which 2 systems work together to perform this function? So first, we have the immune and respiratory system. We know that this is not the answer because the kidneys don't have anything to do with gas exchange or fighting off diseases, which is the immune system. The second we have is the circulatory system, and this actually would be our answer because blood is being circulated through the kidneys where it is then, blood right here, where it is then being filtered, and then it's also moved to the bladder before it can be removed from the body, which is a form of excretion. But we'll just look through our other answers to be safe. We have the skeletal and nervous system. The skeletal is with movement and muscles, which we don't have, which we don't have here, and the nervous system is with brains to give commands, which the liver does not do. And then finally, we have the digestive and circulatory. While it is a circulatory system, it's not digesting food because it's not breaking anything down or taking in nutrients. It's just filtering other waste, so it wouldn't be the digestive system. And then finally, we have question number 79, which says that an investigation was carried out to determine the effects of exercise on the human body. Identify one body system other than the circulatory system that becomes more active as a result of exercise, and state one change in that system. So this goes back to the Making Connections lab we saw. The other body system that was primarily affected was the respiratory system. So we'll write that on the first line, the respiratory system. because it's needed for because more oxygen needs to come into the body and carbon dioxide needs to come out. So one of the changes that we see was that the breathing rate or rate of breathing would increase. And the reason that occurs, which we don't need to write here because you just have to state the change, but the reason that occurs is so that more oxygen can be taken in, or it can be taken in at a faster rate, and carbon dioxide can be pumped out at a faster rate. So that's all we need for this question. It's very quick, and there's your answer. So that's everything for this video. Thank you for listening.